We are getting players that embody everything we're about, and it really starts with this big man here.
Panay.
This is a tough dude that knows how to play nasty. That's what you're looking for when you're trying to build a foundation on the old line. We're excited to have this guy, so now it's go time.
I think it's working out. It's working out.
Welcome home, brother. Welcome home. Everything is about how this guy's been raised and the job that his parents have done and how big that his family is involved in everything that he is and what he is.
Welcome back, sports fans. Thank you for returning for another video. I am your host, Johnny Gaz. Today, we're going to move forward with our mock drafts. We did one last week where we sort of went over all of the options at that point. We talked about the Lions' needs, and now we're a week smarter, a week wiser, and now I think we can make better decisions. So today, we're going to move forward to our 2024 Detroit Lions mock draft 2.0. Let's go. But before we go any farther, make sure to hit that like button if you dig the vibe here at Johnny Gaz Sports. Hit the subscribe button and the notify bell so you don't miss any future videos on the channel. We're on the road to 250 subscribers. I so much appreciate you guys coming along for these videos. Let's get into today's topic. Not much has changed as far as the actual needs that I believe the Lions have as we head towards the season. In my opinion, we still have needs on the defensive line and the defensive backfield. To me, those are the two most important things the Lions need to address in the 2024 draft. I believe we also have to take a look at the offensive side of the football, continuing to bolster our offensive line. We still, I believe, need another guard to back up the free agent acquisition in Kevin Zeitler, as well as Graham Glasgow, which we know we also re-signed. So we have two guards that we've re-signed as we head into the 2024 season. One is a free agent and then one is a reacquisition here for the Lions. But they really need to continue to bolster with some younger talent on the offensive line. We know Frank Ragnow is getting a little bit older, and we know he has some injury concerns. Taylor Decker, a tackle, as well, getting a little bit older, and can we justify then paying him another contract? So I think we're going to have to continue to bolster the O-line, as well as another offensive weapon. We know we lost Josh Reynolds. We know that, we're kind of relying on Jamison Williams, Khalif Raymond, some of those other guys to step up. So I think we're going to have to add to that room another offensive weapon to hopefully give Jared Goff, another piece to add to that amazing offense. We also know the Brad Holmes approach to the draft overall, which has worked so well in the first couple years. Obviously, we know he started this with the draft of Penei Sewell, which we saw in the video coming in, and he is not afraid to just take the best player available. They seem to have established a routine of establishing their board, identifying the guys that they believe are at the top of their list, and they will do what they need to do to get them. Regardless of where they choose these players, they are going to take the best player available. So we're going to move forward, knowing all of these needs and kind of knowing where we're at as we move closer to the draft. Today, we're going to again do the same routine. I have 3 different drafts queued up for us, 3 draft simulators. We will go through all 3. And by doing so, hopefully get a full picture on all of the prospects that are available to the Lions at each pick that they have in the first 3 rounds. We will continue to do 3 rounds for these mock drafts. We will move through 3 different versions, and at the end, we'll sort of review, go through all the players that were available to us, and kind of determine where the Lions may end up at the end of the 2024 draft. Okay, so let's kick off the 2024 Detroit Lions mock draft 2.0. We're going to start with the Pro Football Network mock draft simulator. Again, we're going to do 3 rounds, obviously, for the Lions, and we will now enter the solo draft. We'll go ahead and do it at a normal pace. We'll kind of go over where we stand before we get into the Lions picks. As we know, the Lions are currently picking in the first round at number 29, the second round at pick number 61, and in the third round at pick 73. As far as trades go, as we did in the first mock draft 1.0, we probably won't seek out any trades, and we'll have to just review what comes to us. We will not take any unrealistic trade offers, but we will review them and see if anything makes sense before we make our pick. So we were now up at pick number 29. A couple trade offers here from Dallas, 56 and 87. Pick 51 and 84 from the Steelers. I don't like either of those, so we will pick at number 29. Currently available to us, best player available, a couple offensive linemen, Graham Barton, Jackson Powers Johnson. I like both of those players. I really, really like both of those players. And honestly, if they are both available to us at pick 29, it would be hard to move away from bolstering your interior offensive line. You also have the tackle, Tyler Guyton out of Oklahoma. There's Keon Coleman, the wide receiver out of Florida State, which I like there as well. He's a little bit more of a size wide receiver. We talked about in the mock draft 1.0, and I think that still holds true now. I think the Lions, if they're looking for another offensive weapon, they need like a size wide receiver, more of a body type, somebody that kind of gives you a little bit more size than you have in Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams, Khalif Raymond. A guy like Keon Coleman could fit the bill here. You also have Darius Robinson, the edge out of Missouri, available to you as well. TJ Tampa, the cornerback. Let's see what happened ahead of us here. Chop Robinson just went a few picks ahead. We've talked about him in detail, the edge there. Kool-Aid McKinstry goes off the board to the Eagles at pick 22 in this particular mock draft. So I think all roads in this case now for this first draft, I'm going to go with the offensive lineman I like the best. I don't think you could go wrong either way. I think both guys have some versatility that you like. Graham Barton out of Duke is just a monstrous man. But Jackson Powers Johnson kind of fits the bill as far as a center. He can play guard up front. So I'm going to go ahead and take Jackson Powers Johnson as my first choice here at pick 29 for the Lions. All right, so now we're at our second round selection, pick number 61. We know we chose the center, Jackson Powers Johnson, center or guard, as our first choice at 29. So we are now picking at 61. As we've talked about, I think the biggest need is still currently on defense. I think we need to continue to bolster our defensive line as well as the defensive backfield. So right away, we have a couple prospects up front as a defensive tackle, Leonard Taylor out of Miami or Michael Hall Jr. out of Ohio State. We have the edge, Braylon Trice out of Washington, as well as the cornerback, Kamari Lassiter out of Georgia. Chris Jenkins as well, a defensive tackle, I think is a good choice there. Past that, I don't know if we're going to go any farther down the board. So in my opinion, it's between the cornerback, Kamari Lassiter, and the edge, Braylon Trice. At this point, knowing we win offensive line in the first round, it really comes down to what do you think is the most important position to then fill in the second round? Is it a cornerback or is it the defensive line? With the departure of Cam Sutton, knowing we brought on the two additional cornerbacks, Amik Robertson as well as Carlton Davis, you feel okay about the cornerback position, but you're going to need somebody. We did a little bit of work on, not a little bit of work, we did some serious work on the defensive line as well with Marcus Davenport. But I think you still need help on the edge. So, it's a tough call, but I think in this case, I'm going to take the edge, Braylon Trice out of Washington. I really don't want to miss the opportunity to take an edge that you really like to pair up with Aiden Hutchinson on the other side and just continue to bolster that D-line. So I'm going to go Braylon Trice, the edge out of Washington at pick 61. So now we're at our third round pick number 73. We know we went offensive lineman with Jackson Powers Johnson, the center guard combination out of Oregon at 29, and then went to the edge on defense with Braylon Trice out of Washington. So I'm feeling pretty good about our first two picks. But now at 73, I think we really need to look at our offensive side of the football again. I think we need a weapon as much as I think we also need a cornerback, the defensive back help. As you see here for best available, there just really isn't a cornerback there. So I don't know that I'm willing to go all the way down for Chris Abrams-Drain out of Missouri. And what's really calling my name here on offense in the third round is wide receiver Johnny Wilson out of Florida State. And the reason why I really like Johnny Wilson over especially the couple guys you see here, we've talked about Ricky Pearsall in our 1.0 draft. We took him in 2 out of the 3 mock drafts last time. But more so than Ricky Pearsall, the size that I like out of Johnny Wilson is what really attracts me. He is a huge, big-bodied wide receiver, 6'6", 231, a fantastic RAS score, and we've talked about how the Lions love the good RAS scores. This is a huge, big-body wide receiver, and I have said over and over and over again, if they're going to add a weapon, they need somebody with this body size, this body type. Now, he's not overly athletic, but he is a red zone threat. He is a boundary guy, and I think that's really what you need to pair up with the athletes you have at wide receiver. So if you get to the third round and Johnny Wilson out of Florida State is still available, I think this is a no-brainer pick for the Lions. So I'm going to draft Johnny Wilson out of Florida State for our third round pick number 73. All right, so here's the recap of our Pro Football Network mock draft simulation. As you see, we started off real nice on the offensive line, followed it up on the defensive line with Braylon Trice, the edge out of Washington. So again, that's Jackson Powers Johnson, then Braylon Trice. And then we finished in the third round with our big body wide receiver, Johnny Wilson. So I feel really good about those 3 picks. I think it's a little less focused on the defensive side of the football, but sometimes things just fall as they may. And I think we took the 3 best players available at those 3 picks. So I feel really good about that. So let's move on to our second and third mock drafts here and see if it all holds true. So here's the second mock draft simulation we'll do for our mock draft 2.0. This one's out of the NFL mock draft database simulator. Again, we'll do obviously the Lions, 3 rounds. Let's get into the draft. Okay, so we are now up at pick number 29. As you see here in this particular mock draft simulator, it sort of highlights suggested picks based on need. So you'll see a few spotlighted here. But again, at the very top, you see Jackson Powers Johnson is available. I seem to just keep going back to him. I just think the versatility in the middle is too good to pass up. And again, I think you're building him to be the replacement at center for Frank Ragnow. So that is always a good option there. The other edge, Chop Robinson, we've talked about. There he is available as well. Darius Robinson, the edge out of Missouri. Again, we spent a lot of time on him as well. So you got a lot of good options. Enos Rakestraw as well out of Missouri. So this one really set up for you well, I think, defensively more so than the last draft. Now, because we took Jackson Powers Johnson as our first-round pick in the first simulation, let's change it up again. I'm going to go ahead and go with Chop Robinson at pick 29 for the Lions here in our second mock draft simulation. And now we move into the second round, pick number 61. We know we took Chop Robinson, the edge, so we're feeling pretty good about our defensive line situation. Let's see who's available for us here at 61. So what really pops out to me here at 61 is that the interior offensive lineman out of West Virginia, Zach Frazier, is available. Also, Christian Haynes out of UConn. Both of those guys I really like in the interior. Again, both of those guys are able to play all of the interior line positions, and I think that's what the Lions need if they're going to take a lineman in the first 3 rounds. I think I like Frazier more so than Haynes in this case, so coming off of our 29 pick, the edge, Chop Robinson, I'm going to then bolster our offensive line by drafting Zach Frazier here in the second round at pick 61. And now we move on to our third round pick, pick 73. We have now hit both the offensive and defensive line. So I think we now have to look to a skill player either in the defensive backfield, as we've talked about, the need for corner, or on the offensive side of the football. So let's first see what's available at cornerback here in the third round. I do like Chris Abrams-Drain out of Missouri. Cam Hart, the corner out of Notre Dame, another good option there. And then just kind of looking down the list, you just kind of find the guy that kind of fits the need. Kalen King out of Penn State would be a good choice. I think I like the experience of Cam Hart. I think there's some decent choices here. Why don't we see what's available at wide receiver before we make any sort of commitment, see if anything calls out. And again, without overthinking this, don't mind Javon Baker or even Malik Washington, but I always go back to Johnny Wilson. I just think there's too much size to ignore here based on what I believe the Lions need on offense. This just seems to be the perfect fit, so I'm going to take him again. I really like Johnny Wilson, that size. So at 73, we're going to go with the wide receiver. All right, so mock draft sim number 2 is in the books. I really like this one as well, and the reason why is because you bolstered both offensive and defensive lines in your first 2 picks with guys that I think you got to feel really good about. I don't know how Zach Frazier makes it to pick 61. I think that's actually a little unrealistic, but if this did hold true, or if Brad Holmes works some magic and moves up and takes an interior offensive line, I think getting Zach Frazier would be huge. I then followed up at pick 73 with the big body wide receiver we've talked about twice already, Johnny Wilson out of Florida State. So again, I think it fills the needs that we've talked about. You're getting some athletes and putting the Lions, I think, in a good position as you head to 2024. Let's get a third draft simulation in the mix and see where we're at. And for the third mock sim today, we're going to go from the NFL.com or Pro Football Focus slimmed down version of the mock draft sim. 3 rounds, Detroit Lions. Let's get into it. All right, so we are up now at pick 29. In this mock draft sim, both Jackson Powers Johnson and Chop Robinson went ahead of the Lions pick. However, you see now at pick 29 that you have 2 very solid options in the defensive backfield, and we have not been able to address that in the 2 previous mock sims that we've done. So to me, I think I like Cooper DeJean over Kool-Aid only because of the versatility that DeJean gives you on special teams. I mean, in the defensive backfield, I think Kool-Aid might be a better cover guy, but I think athletically, I like Cooper more. So in this case, if he's available, and I doubt he's available at 29 in real life, and if that was the case, I'd be happy with Kool-Aid. But in this case, Cooper DeJean is available, and that is my pick at number 29. All right, so now we are in the second round. That pick number 61, coming off of the first round pick, we went with the cornerback, Cooper DeJean out of Iowa. So now it comes down to what do you think is mostly the priority in this case? Again, going back to the Brad Holmes strategy, I think he's going to take the best player on their board regardless of where they're picking. But if we're looking at needs, and if we are now at 61 and we see these players in front of us, we know Ricky Pearsall we've talked about in previous mock drafts. We've taken Marshawn Nealon, the edge out of Western Michigan in previous mock drafts. Jonah Ellis, the edge out of Utah. Again, another good choice. Jalen Polk out of Washington, I think, also fits the bill. He's not as necessarily big body as what we talked about previously, but as far as more of an athlete that fits that room, I think that would be another good pick. So again, it comes down to what do you think is more of the priority? What will Brad Holmes prioritize in the draft? Knowing we went defense with pick 1, seeing what I have in front of me here, I actually think I'm going to lean in towards Jalen Polk, the wide receiver out of Washington. I just think insulating Jared Goff even more, making sure that your offense continues to, its trajectory into elite status. I'm going to go ahead and take Jalen Polk out of Washington and really bolster our wide receiver room. And in the third round, pick 73, we've looked at athletes now. We've taken athletes at pick 1, or the round 1 as well as round 2. So I think now we really have to look at the line, offensive line, defensive line, who is available here. So again, at pick 73, we're kind of getting into the woods a little bit more. Austin Booker out of Kansas, an edge. I don't hate that. There's Johnny Wilson, but again, we took the wide receiver in round 2. Gabriel Murphy, I actually really like the edge out of UCLA. So I think you got good choices actually on the defensive line with either Booker or Murphy. Past that, I think we're getting kind of too far into the woods. So in this case, considering where we're at in this mock draft, I'm actually going to go with the edge, Gabriel Murphy out of UCLA. So we're going to work on our defensive line in round 3 of this third mock sim. And there's the results for the third mock sim for mock draft 2.0. We started with Cooper DeJean, the very athletic defensive back. Then we followed up in round 2 with another athlete on the offensive side of the football at wide receiver with Jalen Polk out of Washington, and met the need on the edge in the third round at pick 73 with Gabriel Murphy out of UCLA. I would say this is my least favorite of the mock sims we've done today. I just think that if we don't address one of the line positions in the first or second round, to me, it's not a successful draft. I really think you want to hit on one of those in those first three rounds, and I don't know if we did as well in the first in this one as we did in the first 2. So looking back at all 3 of the mock sims that we did today as part of our mock draft 2.0 for the 2024 Detroit Lions, I think our most successful was either this first one where we hit on the offensive lineman Jackson Powers Johnson at pick 29, followed up with Braylon Trice, the edge out of Washington at pick 61, and then hit the athlete at wide receiver, the big body wide receiver Johnny Wilson out of Florida State at pick 73. In the second mock draft sim, we ended up with Chop Robinson, the edge at pick 29, then followed up with the interior offensive lineman Zach Frazier out of West Virginia, and then again went with Johnny Wilson, the big body wide receiver at pick 73. Just went over the third mock sim with Cooper DeJean at pick 29. I think that's a little unrealistic. I don't think he makes it there. We then hit on the wide receiver at pick 61, Jalen Polk out of Washington, and finally hit one of our lines, the edge, Gabriel Murphy in UCLA. at pick 73. So again, I think it comes down to, what does Brad Holmes prioritize? What are the players that he sees at the top of their board, and will they go get them? Are they comfortable staying at pick 29, 61, 73, and beyond, and just taking best player available? Today, again, we focused really on need, on those positions that we talked about as we opened the video. And I think if we get a semblance of what we've gone through today, again, looking at the mock draft we did just a week ago compared to this one, the Lions have a lot of options. We'll say it again. Brad Holmes has put this organization in a position where they really can take the best player available. Outside of some stupid draft pick, a kicker, a quarterback, taking a running back again in the first round, I know they will not do any of those things. They are in a power position. So leaving these mock drafts, I'm feeling really good about the Lions' position as we get closer to the NFL draft. So how'd I do this time around? The 2024 Detroit Lions mock draft 2.0. Things are starting to take shape. Players are starting to come into focus. We'll do one more round of mock drafts as we get a little bit closer to that draft coming up in Detroit here at the end of April. Just another week or so down the road, we have the Lions jersey reveal on April 18th. So come back and see me for that one. I'm really excited to see what they come up with. I really appreciate you guys' time. We're on the road to 250 subscribers. Definitely hit the like button, the subscribe, and notify bell so you don't miss any future videos here on the channel. Make sure to take care of yourself, your mental health. That is number one. I want to see you guys come back on future videos. Thank you so much for your time. Have a fantastic day.